Alright, so as promised, here's a video taking you through the content I tried to show you during the webinar that we did with Rocky Nook on Tuesday the 24th of July. Obviously there was a few, technical issues. Those have kind of been ironed out now, but it's just the very nature of the beast, isn't it? They do say don't work with children and animals. I think that kind of saying needs to be updated now. Also, don't work with children, animals and technology. So you're very reliant on technology. But hey, this is the solution. I thought I'd put together this little video just running you through some of the stuff I wanted to cover with you. The great thing is now you can watch this. If it maybe feels a little bit quick for you, or you maybe missed something, you can stop it, take it back a few paces and then have a look at it again so that it sticks. But let's just dive in. We'll start off with something to do with layer masks, and let's dive over into Lightroom. Alright, so on the screen you can see a pitch that I did when I was on holiday recently of a guy called Mick, super guy who owns the actual cottage that we stayed in on his farm. This is the final picture that you can see here, but because I posted this fairly recently on my blog, I did have a few questions with people asking what the lighting setup was and how I actually did the picture. Well, if you go to my website, glyndewis.com, you'll see a breakthrough of that. But what I wanted to show you in this particular little video here was just some of the steps that go into the retouching side of it, because the picture's made up of two photographs. Now you can see in the top right hand corner here, just about see where the actual modifier is creeping in. Just so you know, that's a Westcott Rapid Box XL. Just coming in here, and the light I used was an Elinchrom ELB 400, and that uses high sync, which is kind of like high speed sync. It allowed me to shoot at a much faster shutter speed because outside was quite bright. But I ended up taking two pictures so that Mick was illuminated well. And you can see if I zoom in on Mick's face, we've got one side lit here, the other side in shadow. A little bit of light on the cheek there. That's more of a fluke than anything, but that's the kind of lighting style that I wanted. However, you can see there are a few bright spots on the tractor. So what I did was take two shots in very quick succession. So this was the first one with the flash on, and here's the other one where Mick's moved a little bit, and you can see now this is where the flash is off so that we don't have those hot spots. And I had a couple of people saying, how did I merge them together? Well, let's just start off with something really simple so we can then build up. Well, what I'm going to do in Lightroom, you can probably just see at the bottom of the screen here, I'm going to highlight both of those two images, the one with the flash and the one without the flash. Then I'm going to go to the photo menu, choose edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. So that's going to bring both of those images into the same document, not as two separate tabs. They can actually be in the same document, one on top of the other. So it's a nice quick way of bringing them into Photoshop. So here we can see now, then if I just double click on the hand tool to bring it nice and close. So the top layer is the one that contains the flash. The bottom layer, if I just turn off that one there, is the one without the flash. Now you can probably see as I turn them on and off that they're not perfectly lined up. Now that is purely down to me. I was on holiday, I took minimal kit, didn't have a tripod, and I was just resting it on the ground. So we need to line these two pictures up. Now we are going to talk about something called the difference blend mode in a short while, but let's just load these up first of all, line them up rather. I've got the top layer selected in the layers panel. I'm going to hold my shift key down and click on the bottom one. So they're now both highlighted. Then I'm going to come to the move tool. And in the move tool at the options bar at the top of the screen, now every tool that you use in Photoshop has unique options available to it at the top of the screen. There's a little icon here. Now if I hover over that, you'll probably just see it says auto align layers. Now if you don't see that one, just go to the edit menu and you'll see here there's the option auto align layers. And what this is going to do, if I just quickly click on that, it's going to bring up this dialog box. I always leave this in auto, then we'll click OK. And Photoshop, you'll see a few whirly things going on, a few little sliders, and very quickly Photoshop's going to line those two images up. Now if I go before and after, yes, there's a little bit of movement in Mick because he moved between the shots, but pretty much the tractor is fairly well lined up. So now that I've got that, you can see that because it's lined them up, there's the bottom image, we can see a little bit of that. So let's just grab the crop tool and we'll bring that down a little bit, bring that one in just to there. We'll come up to here and we'll come up to there like so. So now that we've got that, and then all it's a simple case of doing is, because this is sometimes, what we have to resort to, because I was on holiday, I didn't want to be taking so long to get the light perfectly right on the tractor. That wouldn't have been the best holiday break for my wife. So I was trying to do this really quickly, and this double tapping kind of method, two pictures really quick. So now what I'm going to do is, now that with the top layer selected, I'm going to go to the bottom of the layers panel, click to add a layer mask. I'm going to get my brush, a black brush. Let's just go for a normal round brush. Make sure there's no settings in there. Always click on the brush settings, make sure nothing's ticked so it doesn't behave kind of weird. And then all I'm going to do with that black brush is just literally just come in here and paint away the top layer. Now that's now going to reveal what's on the layer below, which is the darker image. You can see there's a darker image. So now it's obvious what I've done. So we just need to brighten it up. And again, this is really basic stuff if you know it. If you don't know it, then this is going to be like, wow, that is so cool. But all I need to do now then to brighten up these darker areas here so it all matches in and you wouldn't really know that we've done what we have, I'll go and choose something on levels adjustment layer. Let's just bring these properties out. I like to have them out just there. And I'm just going to take the mid-tone slider and we'll just bring that across the left just to go into somewhere like that. Let's dock that just there. Oops, we don't want to do that. Let's just put that there. All right. Okay, so now then let's just zoom out just a touch. We can see now we can go from before, after, before, after. There's the out of camera shot with no flash. There's the one with the flash and the shiny bits. And there's the one without the shiny bits. And there's the levels adjustment. So really simple, but just a great way that you can combine images using what's called a double tap and using a simple layer mask that can allow you then to kind of create the kind of picture that you want. Now, talking about layer masks there, the book, the Photoshop Toolbox, that there concentrates on three main areas of what I believe are three main solid areas within Photoshop, and that is layer masks, brushes and blend modes. And I think if you know those, and I'm not saying you know the intricate details of them, but if you know them, then there's nothing that you can't do in Photoshop. So that's just that first one there. So let's just close that one down. All right, now let's just open this up here because this is really cool. Let's go to the Rocky Nook folder and we'll go to brushes. Now, what I'm really happy about is that in the, let's just, I'm going to put that there actually. There we go. Now this image here, I absolutely love this. I'm really, really happy that a very good friend of mine called Aaron Blaze has contributed to the new book. And what Aaron's done, Aaron, if you don't know Aaron, he used to work at Disney for 21 years, I think it was. He animated on The Lion King, Pocahontas, Beauty and the Beast. He directed Brother Bear. This guy is someone that I would call a traditional artist. Okay, the old drawing and whatever. That's what I would refer to as a traditional artist. Now, these pictures here are what Aaron's drawn using brushes within Photoshop. And you remember I said a moment ago that the three things I think are really important: layer masks, brushes and blend modes. Now, the picture on the left, the two cats, they're they used to be our cats. They're no longer with us, unfortunately, but Aaron drew those for us. And the other picture is of a lion that Aaron probably did, knowing him in about half an hour or so. Incredibly talented. But what this shows is how much Aaron knows about brushes. And Aaron has done a little kind of tutorial for the book, which I transcribed and followed step by step to put that in the book for you. So I'm really happy about that. And the great thing is as well, with the downloads that come with the book, you get the video that he sent me to transcribe from. So that's that. So what I want to do is just show you just a couple of things with brushes. Because if you're anything like me, maybe drawing isn't your strong point, and you're not going to be that good at drawing, say, like some kind of shape that would be good for turning into hair or for grass or for dust and debris. But what I want to show you is a way around that. So what I did was, before we did the webinar on Tuesday, I walked into my garden, pinched a little bit of the soil into my fingers, came in, dropped onto a piece of A4, sprinkled it and took a picture with my phone. And that's what you can see here. So let's just crop this down. We don't need a table there. And I'll crop this in just here, bring this up to here, and we'll bring that to there. So here we can see, if I zoom in, you can see this is just dust and dirt and whatever that I've just picked out the garden. But we can turn this now into a brush to mimic the look of dust, debris, snow, you name it, anything that we can do with this. And all we need to do is convert it into a brush. And the great thing about Photoshop is Photoshop can turn anything that's black or shades of grey into a brush. So here's what we're going to do. First thing I want to do is desaturate this, because obviously the brush is, like I said, black or shades of grey. So I want to desaturate it. So we can go Image, Adjustments and Desaturate, or they've got the keyboard shortcut. Now I want to make sure that these really do stand out. So I want to make sure that the blacks are black and the whites are white. So let's go and get a levels adjustment layer. And all I'm going to do is get the white point and drag that over to really brighten it up. Get the black point and really darken that down. So now you can see how they're really standing out. So there's before, after, before, after. All right, and then we'll click OK. Now what I'm going to do, because some of that debris and the grey parts might be right on the outside of this particular document, so if I just turn what you can see now into a brush, I might have some straight edges to it, and obviously we don't want that. So to avoid that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press D on my keyboard to set the foreground and background colours to their default of black and white, and then press X to make sure that the foreground colour is white, and then I'm going to go and get a gradient. So I'm going to use the gradient tool in the toolbar, and when I come to the gradient options at the top of the screen here, I'm going to choose the second one from the left on the top row, and that is, if I hover over it, it'll say foreground to transparent. Now all I'm going to do then is just drag around multiple gradients going around my image, or around this dirt here, to make sure that the outside edges are white and we don't have any grey hard bits to it. The great thing about using the foreground to transparent gradient is it allows you to make multiple gradients on one document. Any of these other ones here, if I chose those, if I put down one gradient and then go to put down another, it'll replace it. So you only ever get to have one document, or one gradient rather, in your document. So now that we've done that, all we need to do is go to the edit menu and choose define brush preset. Now there's a bit of a warning for you. If you find you can't click where it says define brush preset, you'll find it's maybe grayed out. That's because your document size is going to be bigger than 5,000 pixels on the long edge. The biggest size you can create a brush is 5,000 pixels. So just reduce the size till you get to that particular point. But all we need to do now then, define brush preset. We'll call this what we want. We'll call it dirt for now, and then click OK. So now look, if I just let's just get rid of this background here, so we can go to there. I'll choose a black foreground color now, and I'll just press down once. So now you can see we've got a great dust, debris, dirt kind of brush. But what happens here, look, if I stroke across, see how it all looks the same? Obviously we want to avoid that. So this is where the fun part comes in with the brushes. Whether you're an artist looking to draw like Aaron, or maybe you're looking to create composites, special effects, or even just cutouts, brushes are incredibly helpful. So right, let's just have a bit of a play then. Let's go to the brush settings at the top of the screen here, and this is where the fun happens. Make sure to everything ticked off. So first of all, spacing. You can just about see at the bottom here we've got the spacing. If I increase that, that's going to increase the distance between each of the brush strokes. This kind of area down here is what the brush will look like with the settings that are currently in place. So I'm going to increase the spacing just a little bit. Then I'm going to go to the shape dynamics, and I'm going to get the size jitter and take that all the way to 100%. You probably just about see that in the preview at the bottom here, but basically what this means is every time you use the brush, you lift off, press down, lift off, press down, it'll vary the size of the brush. So obviously if you're creating snow, dust and debris, that's going to be perfect because you don't want it all to be the same size. Now another one that's really useful is the angle jitter, and that works the same way. I always take that to 100, so every time we lift off, press down, lift off, press down, it's going to vary the angle. So that's really going to help. Now I'm also at the bottom here going to click on the flip X jitter, so that it will actually, every time I press down and lift off, press down and lift off, it will shift the actual brush left to right. It will flip it horizontally, and then flip Y, so it flips it vertically. So it's really random. And then I think the probably last one we'll do, let's go and have a bit of a play here. We'll go to transfer, and we'll increase the opacity jitter all the way up to around about, let's go for 100% for the sake of it. So just with those few settings in there, look at the difference this has made to the brush. If I just press down and do a stroke going across, can you see how it's all really random now? Something like that. Really random. So you can see how now you can create dust, debris, just by going outside, getting a bit of dirt, sprinkling it on some paper and photographing it. All you need to do is to actually turn it to black and white, and then you can create a brush. You could even make it turn it into snow, something like that. So the options here are infinite. So I just really want to advise you how you can go out there, or encourage you rather, because that's what the whole premise of the book is, the Photoshop Toolbox. The whole idea that I've got there is to encourage you folks to have the mindset when you're using Photoshop of what would happen if. All these great techniques that you see being demonstrated on videos and at presentations and in books, you know, people don't know those naturally. They've had an inquisitive mind, and they've wondered what would happen if. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. So that's that bit there. One other little thing I wanted to show you with brushes was, just while we're in the kind of flow of things here, was this. Now another little file that I actually did was this one here. And again, this is grass. Now, I've got techniques on my YouTube channel where I show you how you can use a brush that's already built into Photoshop that looks like grass. Aaron shows you how you can draw grass in some of his tutorials, but I'm not very good at drawing. So maybe if I go and pull out a few blades of grass, put it onto the piece of paper and photograph it, maybe that would work. So let's have a look. Here's some grass that I've put down and photographed with my phone. Let's just desaturate it because we know we need to do that. We can see it's a lot of greys, not much white and that in there. So let's just bring up the levels adjustment. And I'm going to click on the white point here, the white sample point, and I'm going to click on an area of the grey, and that'll turn all that into white just there. So let's just increase that a little bit more. We'll increase the blacks just a little bit, just to darken down that kind of grass. Now the grass, there's a little bit of granite, a little bit of transparency to it. So let's just darken that down. Let's just get a brush. We'll press D on my keyboard again to set the foreground and background to their default of black and white. Let's just go and choose a normal, soft, round brush up here. Make sure there's no settings in there that we don't want. We'll turn those off. And what I'm going to do now is change the blend mode. See, there's three of those things now. We've used layer masks, we've used brushes, now we're using blend modes. And then what I'm going to use is overlay. Now, overlay is a really clever one to use when you're using layer masks and what have you, and maybe you want to tidy your layer mask up, because if you're using overlay, it means that it's only going to affect the grey. So although I've got a black foreground colour here now, you'd expect that I'd be able to paint all over this white background, but look what happens. Look, I'm painting over the grass. The only areas being affected on the grass are the areas that aren't pure black. They're grey, like so. So I can really make that grass start to stand out. Now some areas there have actually gone grey, so what I'll do is let's change the foreground colour to white. We're still using overlay, so when I use the white brush now, it's only going to affect the grey areas. Can you see that's tidied that up there? Really cool. Love that. Overlay blend mode. Really, really cool. Alright, so now that we've got that, then let's turn this into a brush. In fact, let's just crop it down just a little bit. We don't need quite so much space around it. Then we go to the edit menu. Define brush preset. We'll call this grass, and then there we go. So let's just create a new document, nice big document, so we can see this working. We'll get a different colored brush. Let's just go for black, and you can see now, oops, change the blend mode back to normal, and there we've got our grass. But again, it looks the same when we do that particular stroke there. So what do? We go to the brush settings, have a bit of a play, click on brush tip shape, increase the spacing. Let's go to shape dynamics. We'll change this size jitter just a little bit. We don't want it to, if it's grass, we don't want it to be varied too much. And we'll go to scattering. I'll increase the scattering by maybe up to 2. Increases how many there are there. And let's have a look here. Transfer, opacity jitter, that's fine. Let's have a look what else we want here. We'll go for the flip X jitter. So this is why you don't want the flip Y. See how it turns the grass upside down? If you can just see in that preview there, just the flip X will be fine. Size jitter, a little bit of angle jitter as well. So now look, when I use the, whoops, we don't want to flip the Y. There we go. So now look, when I use the brush, can you see how we've got nice blades of grass just there as well? You could, if you wanted to be really, you know, if you were actually drawing, you could come in and choose different shades of green, let's say. There's one green for the foreground. Let's choose a green for the background. Let's go for one a little bit darker. And then what you can do then is come and choose color dynamics. And you can use this foreground and background jitter to vary how much Photoshop applies either the foreground or the background every time you lift off and press down. So here, if I just do this, look, you can see now, if I zoom in, can you see how on that grass there, it's varied the shade of that particular grass there, so that you can start to make it look realistic. Now, I absolutely love brushes, and I think, you know, whether you're a pure photographer who does retouching or you're an artist, I think brushes are a huge part of what we do. So I really do encourage you to have a look at that. All right, let's just close that down just there, and we'll get rid of that just there. All right, so the next thing I wanted to show you, which I tried to show you on the webinar, let's just get a glass of water. Hold on a second. All right. Oh, that's better. Was to do with white balance. So let me just close that. And I'm going to open up this particular picture in this folder. Where does it go? White balance. This is a picture of my friend called Sam, who's a biker. And the actual area I photographed him in is in Yorkshire. And this actual viaduct to the back here is called Ribblehead Viaduct. Absolutely stunning location. But when I actually took this picture of Sam, I didn't have with me a grey card, so my colours were kind of there. I was kind of hoping that the camera would capture them just right. But let's just say that you've got your picture here and you want to make sure that the colours are absolutely bang on, or pretty much as near as damn it. And you can see from the image here at the moment there's a little bit of a colour cast to it. That's purely what I've added in retouching for my final image. But how can I now set it so that the colours are just spot on? So there's loads of ways we can do that, but I want to show you a way which I've learned, which I think is absolutely brilliant for doing this. So what I'm going to do first of all, over in the toolbar on the left hand side, is I'm going to choose the Color Sampler tool, and then I'm going to choose a threshold adjustment layer. Now this is a real simple adjustment layer to use. If I'm going to get this little slider, you've got this histogram, and in the middle is this little slider. Now I'm going to take that all the way to the left hand side, and we know that when we use histograms, the left hand side is for shadows, right hand side is for the highlights. So now when I bring the slider slowly back over to the right hand side, areas that first start to appear in the image are what will be black. Okay, so we slowly bring it over, very slowly, and those areas that you start to see first of all are the areas in your picture that will be black. Okay, now we can see here, it's kind of saying that these areas on the bike showed up first. So let's just turn that adjustment layer off and on, off and on. And you can see that as I do that, yes, those areas here are, or they should be, black. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to use this Color Sampler tool, and I'm going to press down just once on one of those black areas. Now I'm hoping you can see this, but there's a little marker with a number 1 on it. So remember, number 1 is for the blacks in the picture. All right, so that's that one there. So we've done that. Now the next thing we'll do, let's get this slider this time again. Let's turn on that adjustment layer, and we'll take this slider all the way to the right hand side. So this is for the highlights, the white parts of the picture. Slowly start to bring it over, and as we bring it over, we start to see white parts of the picture start to show through. Now you have to be careful with this if you have metal in the picture, because you'll probably notice it was this area here that showed up first. And if I turn that adjustment layer off, we can see that's actually the metal forks on the bike. So it's chrome, and that can be a bit deceiving. That's not really white, that's just a hot spot within the image. So you don't want to click on areas where there's a hot spot like that. But if I just close this down, you can see here, top left hand corner, that's an area of the clouds there. That should be white. That showed up pretty soon, that did, when we moved the slider. So what I'm going to do, Color Sampler tool, press down once in that area, and you'll probably just about see we've got a little marker with the number 2 next to it. So number 1's for the blacks, number 2's for the whites. Now when we want to set our colour balance, we could just use black and whites, but let's just try and get it really spot on. Let's now try to find the grey. Now there's nowhere on this slider we can put it to actually start to bring in the grey, so we need to do something a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to just get rid of that adjustment layer just there. Now I want to briefly mention the difference blend mode, because this is what's really crucial here. Let's just imagine that I had 2 pictures of Sam. One where he was, I wanted to basically line them up like we did with that picture of Mick. So let's just imagine here's 2 layers in the layers panel of Sam. Now what I can do when we have 2 layers, if I change the blend mode of the top layer to difference, you'll notice here that the picture goes completely black. Now what difference does, the difference blend mode looks at those 2 layers and says, right, what is there on each of these layers that is identical between the 2 of them? Now because these 2 pictures, I've just duplicated one of them, they are identical, the whole picture has gone black. So anywhere in your picture that turns black when you use the difference blend mode means it's identical between the 2 layers. So let's just try something else now then. Let's just get my move tool, and I'm purposely going to just use my arrow key, and I'm going to, whoops, we don't want to do that. Let's go back to normal. I'm going to purposely move this picture of Sam just a little bit. So the top layer I've moved across. Now let's use the difference blend mode. And can you see how now there are areas that are black and areas that aren't? All right, so that means that some areas are identical, the colors, the tones, some aren't. But I could then kind of just move this layer across, and eventually it'll line up. So that lines up, everything goes black. That means they're lined up. All right, so now, what the hell is the relevance of me talking about that? Well, so far we have made a mark where the actual black point is, and we've made a mark where the white point is, but let's find out where the grey point is. So this is where we have that attitude of what would happen if. Now I'm going to add a new layer above the picture of Sam, and I'm going to go to the edit menu, choose fill, and I'm going to choose 50% grey. Now I want to find the 50% grey within my picture, don't I? So if I put 50% grey above Sam and then change the blend mode to difference, Photoshop's going to look at those two layers and go, right, well, between these two layers here, what's identical? What is 50% grey on both of these layers? And what we know is going to be identical is what's gone black. So let's have a look. Zoom in. This area around the actual petrol tank here looks like it could be grey. So let's have a look, turn it on and off. Yeah, it looks like it would be grey. So maybe that would be a good place then with our colour sampler. Let's just put a little marker. Let's just zoom in just a little bit. Whoops, get rid of that. We don't want that. Let's just zoom in, and I'm going to put down a press just there. So now we've actually found out where the black, the white and the grey points are. Let's just zoom out and get rid of everything. All right, so now then, what do we need to do? Let's go and get something like a levels adjustment layer. And in here, if I use a levels or a curves, we have these colour samplers, white, grey and black. So what I'm going to do is, let's just say, let's choose the black one first of all. I'll click that down. I'll then bring my cursor and I'll go to where the marker was that Photoshop told me was black, and I'll look at the little crosshair there and I'll click down once, right in the middle of it. So Photoshop says, right, I've turned that to completely black. Then I want to get my white. Now the white, if I remember correctly, was up in the sky. There we go, there's number 2. So my white point, let's go into here and press down just there. So that's now said that that's white. Can you see how it's turned that to white? So we're kind of getting there. Now let's just see if I clicked in a good area for the grey. So let's click on the grey sampler, zoom in on the petrol tank, and it was just about there, wasn't it? Something like that. So now I've now set the white, the black and the grey points. And look, the colour balance now, look, that's before with the green cast, that's after. Before and after. So I think that is such a cool way to use that difference blend mode when we've got the 50% grey layer to find where is 50% grey within my picture. Now, because we've now used this adjustment layer here to get really accurate kind of colour, I would suggest we don't have to leave it like that. It's an adjustment layer, it's got opacity, we can play around that and dial it into where we want to be. So I really hope that's a useful technique. It might be one that you need to reverse a little bit and have a look at again, but I really think if you don't use a grey card on the day, this technique here, and there's many others I'm sure, but this technique here could be one that you could pull out of your Photoshop toolbox, had to say it, that's really going to help you out. So that's that one. All right, now let me just dive into quickly show you this one here. Now, hands up, this is a technique that is for those of you who are using the Creative Cloud, and I don't just mean the photographer's bundle, so that you've got Photoshop and Lightroom. You're going to have access to all of the applications within there. So you've certainly got Premiere Pro, because you do need Premiere Pro for this. So if you haven't got Premiere Pro, just jump forward to the last technique I'll show you, which is on light beams. But if you have got Premiere Pro, let me just show this, because this is super cool. All right, so let me just open up these images here. Let's go to the Rocky Nook folder, and we'll go to movie coloring. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm going to show you these two images here. All right, so what we have here, if I go to this first one here, let's just close down that information. Okay, so this little picture here, you can see it's kind of like movie format. What I've actually done is gone to YouTube. I found a trailer for my favourite TV program on Amazon Prime, which is Vikings. Absolutely love that program. And all I've done is taken a screen grab, because I would love to be able to use the colouring that they did on the TV program. I'd love to get that into my own pictures. All right. So that's the picture I've taken. I can use that in a moment. Now, here's the picture that I want to apply it to. This is my friend Brent, who's out in Tampa in Florida, who I photographed whilst at Photoshop World this 2018. Absolutely super guy. Going out there again in January, actually 2019, to photograph him again. But I want to try and give the colouring on this picture from the TV series here. So this is what we need to do. Now, if you followed any of my tutorials beforehand, you'll know that one of my favourite ways of doing colorizing is to use lookup tables. I absolutely love lookup tables and how you can use them to kind of create recipes of looks within your picture. And we're going to do something similar with that now, but this is where we need Premiere Pro. So let me just click on Premiere Pro to load that in. Let's just give that a second to load it all in. All right, so now we're there. Let's just, we'll call this a new project, and I'll just call it Vikings just for the sake of it. And I'll just drop this somewhere on the desktop. Doesn't really matter where I put this. You'll see why in a moment, and then we'll click OK. So I'm just going to go to the Assembly tab at the top, and I'm going to bring in those two images, the one of Brent and the one of Bjorn and the scene from Vikings. Let's bring those in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag these down onto the timeline. So just put one there. That's the one of Brent. Don't need to be that quite so big. And drag that to there. And then I'm going to get the Vikings screen grab, and I'm going to bring that into Premiere Pro, and I'm going to put that on exactly the same timeline. You can just see there. Now it's a bit too small there, so let's go to the Edit tab, and we'll just increase the size of it like that. Now what I don't want to do is use the colouring on his face, because he's got all this kind of face paint on there. I want the scene, so I just need to drag him across just a little bit so we get that background environment. Something like that will be great. So we get that blue, that orange, that teal kind of look within the image. So this is the really cool thing. I'm then going to go to the colour tab. Now one of the updates in Premiere Pro recently was called Colour Match, and the idea for this was, let's just imagine now that you're doing some video footage and you've got numerous cameras. So you've got your main camera, then you've got maybe a GoPro or a phone as well recording footage, and you bring all that footage into Premiere, and when you look at it you can kind of tell that different cameras have been used. So this Colour Match, which is an update in Premiere Pro, fairly recent one, Premiere Pro CC, what that does is it will kind of try to match the look of the footage, so it gives a much more kind of pleasing viewing experience. So when I saw that update, I thought, well, if we can use that on moving images, can we use it on still images? And this goes back to that thing I kind of mentioned about having the mentality of what would happen if. Well, it just so happens it does work. So let me just show you this now. So in Premiere Pro, we've got still images on the timeline. One of Brent, which is this one just here, and then the one of the Viking scene here, which I've obviously moved across. Now when we're in the colour tab over on the right hand side where it says colour wheels and match, I'm going to click on comparison view, and what that's going to do is it's going to put those two pictures in a moment. It'll put them side by side. So the left hand side image is the reference, the one that you want to gain the colour information from. The right hand side is the one you want to apply it to. And this excuse me, this could not be any easier. All we need to do then is click on this little button here called Apply Match. So if I click on that, Premiere Pro looks at the footage of the screen grab of Vikings, it looks at the shadows, the highlights, the midtones, and it creates a lookup table and applies it to my image. Do you see how that just sort of came in then? I don't know why that's gone black, but I'm sure that'll come back in a second. Computer's struggling just a little bit. There we go. All right, let's just bring that over to there. I don't know why it's doing that, but it's just, I think it's because it's warm in this room and its computer's not liking it. So now that we've actually applied that colouring to the actual picture there, what we'll now do is we'll go to the Lumetri Colour tab just at the top here, and I'm going to go to Export Cube. So when I click on Export Cube, I'll navigate to the desktop, and all I'll do is I'll just say, well, tell you what, let's just put this file on my desktop and we'll call it Vikings. So this is me saving a lookup table I've created in Premiere. Now then, let's go back to Photoshop. I'm going to go to my lookup table adjustment layers, click on Load 3D LUT, and click again, so it actually gives me the option to go to the desktop to try and find where we've got this lookup table that I created. There you go, see Vikings.cube. I'll click on that, we'll click Load, and there you can see it's now applied that look to my picture. And I think this is just incredible. I think the possibilities here are endless. Now there is extra software you can buy that will probably allow you to do this, but who wants to spend more money when we actually got the facility that we can do this kind of stuff within software we've always got, just by having the mentality of what would happen if. So now that we've got a lookup table which is taken the colour, the information from the shadows, midtones and highlights from that screen grab, it's now applied it to the shadows, midtones and highlights of my picture of Brent. Great thing is, because it's an adjustment layer, I can come in and dial in opacity, I can use blend modes, I can then, if I want to, come in and start adding more adjustment layers to it if I wanted to really create the kind of unique look that I particularly want for my picture. But I think that is super, super cool. Possibilities there are endless. I really want to encourage you to give that one a go if you've got Premiere Pro CC. Take some screen grabs from YouTube of favourite movies, favourite TV programmes, maybe even a picture that you really, really like and you thought, oh, I'd love to get that kind of colouring in my pictures. Put that into Premiere, create a 3D lookup table, bring it into Photoshop and apply it to your own picture. See if you can start to get that kind of colour in there. So I really do think this is super, super exciting and some great possibilities for what we can do with our images. All right, so that's that one there. Let's just close that down. Get rid of that. And I'm going to close Premiere Pro. So let's just close that window. We don't want to save anything just there. All right, so the last thing I want to show you then, let's just go to here. This is a bit of a lighting effect. This was in my, I think this was in the Photograph Like a Thief, bit of a light beams technique here. This is just a little throwaway kind of technique that I wanted to give you. It's an old picture here that you'll notice. If you followed me for a while, you'll probably knew that I was doing a animals project, and this is the first one that I ever did. And the technique I want to show you is the light beams. So these light beams coming down from the sky, I want to show you how you can do that because it is incredibly simple. And it's a great effect that you can add into your pictures. So here's how we do it. Really simple. There's a few little dialog boxes that open up. So just, watch it, stop it, rewind so you get it all down. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Layer, New Fill Layer, where are we? New Fill Layer, and then Gradient. And we'll call this Light Beams. Whoops, Light Beams. And click OK. Okay, so when we do that, we get the first dialog box that appears. Now, what I'm going to do now is choose where it says Style. I'm going to change it from Linear to Angle. You see how it's done that little change just there. Once we've done that, I'm then going to click on the gradient itself. So another little pop-up box. Here in the middle, it says Gradient Type. At the moment, it says Solid. Change it to Noise. All right, and we can then just click on the Randomize button, something like this. You can see it's multicolored, kind of rainbow kind of effect in there. And you can kind of see that there are like light beams coming down, but they're all kind of different colors. And obviously we don't want that. So we need to desaturate this picture. We've got red, green and blue sliders. There's no saturation slider. So how are we going to do that? Well, where it says color model, at the moment it says RGB, change it to HSB, hue, saturation and brightness. And then just take the saturation slider all the way over to the left hand side to desaturate your picture. And then you can click on the randomize button to keep clicking that until you get the kind of light beams that you want. So let's just go with, just keep it's addictive actually, you can just keep on clicking. So let's go with a few more clicks. I'll stop it. I'll go with that one just there. Once we've done that, we'll click OK, and then we can now actually move it around like this. It's kind of a cool effect there, but obviously we need to know where to place it. So let's just click OK. I'm going to come in and change the blend mode. Let's see there again, there's one of those things, layer mask, brushes and blend modes. I'll change it to maybe hard light, something like that. And you can see now I need to position it a little bit better. So let's just double click on that layer to bring up the first dialog box, which means we can then click, drag it around and position it. And we'll go for something like there. Click OK. Comes with a layer mask. Let's click on the layer mask. Get a brush. We don't want a grass brush. We want a normal round brush. Make sure there's no settings in there that's going to make it look a little bit weird. Close that down. And then all I want to do, nice big brush. And we'll just paint away like this. Let's paint it off areas that we don't want it to be. Come into there like that. Off the top bit. There was a name, somebody messaged me a while back to say what these light beams are actually called, but I can't for the life of me remember it. So something like that just there. Now if you're not completely happy with it, it's an adjustment layer, which means you can double click to open up the first dialog, click on the gradient to bring up the next dialog, and then just keep on clicking the old randomized button there until you get what you want. So I'll stick with something like that. I actually need to remove area over here, don't I, with my brush. Let's just click on that layer mask. Let's get rid of that just there. And then you can, if you want to, kind of just lower the opacity so that you've got those light beams in. Now the trick with this is obviously there's a few little steps involved there, but you need to always use a picture that has got a bright spot in the sky, because when we have these light beams, it's because there's a bit of a separation in the clouds and that light's come through to create that effect. So if you've got that, then great. But that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to go through. We were going to do like 45 minutes and some Q&A. We managed to get through some of the Q&A. But I really hope that this is useful for you. I hope there's something in there. And I really do as well hope that you get a lot from the book, the Photoshop Toolbox. I am genuinely excited about the book because I think if I could rewind time, this would be the first book that I would ever write, because it kind of covers the workings, the main body of Photoshop. And I think no matter how much Photoshop is developed over the coming years, and there's some really cool stuff coming, the heart of Photoshop, the core of Photoshop, will always be layer masks, brushes and blend mode. So quite cunningly, I've kind of written it in a way that the book's going to have a lot of longevity. So I really do hope that it's useful for you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, if you want to get in touch, drop me a line to glyn@glyndewis.com. But also, let me just bring up this little graphic here. Might as well, seeing as I made it. I would really appreciate it if you would maybe think about joining my email group. The web address at the top there, glyndewis.com/Glyn Dewis ebook. If you go to that URL there, you'll get a free download of an ebook which I've put together for you. I just want to treat it as a bit of a pen pal, keep in touch, tell you what's going on. I certainly don't spam you or anything like that. And also check out the He Shoots, He Draws podcast, which is a podcast that I do every week with my best mate Dave Clayton. But folks, for those of you who sat through the webinar last night on the Tuesday, thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for the encouragement and also the understanding and the patience with technical issues. Like I said at the start, you know, these things happen. Doesn't really matter, does it? It's not the end of the world. There's always a solution, which is what this video is all about. So thank you so much for all the support, and a huge thanks to the folks at Rocky Nook who enabled me to do this, and also just the best publishers. I'm so incredibly happy to be working with those guys, and I can't wait for the new book to come out. So folks, thanks again, and I'll see you online.